This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Election Commission's remote voting proposal for migrants. The participants are Akshay Raut, former Director General, Election Commission of India, and Gaura Dhawanlal, AIR correspondent.
Mr. Akshay Raut, welcome to the program. So with reference to the Election Commission's proposal to put forward multi-constituency remote electronic voting machines so that migrant workers can actually get their right to franchise where they are working with minimum difficulties, what are your views on this proposal, sir?
Well, this is one of the best reforms possible in recent years. We have seen Election Commission going on a course of reforms of late, but this one is very foundational. Why? Go back to the time of India's independence, when the Constitution was prepared by some far-sighted people. They created the Election Commission, and more importantly, they gave the power of universal adult franchise in the hands of the ordinary Indian voter. At that time, if you recall, there was vast illiteracy, lots of poverty, and the country was just out of the trauma of partition. It was struggling to establish itself as a new independent country, but these people had trust. The founding fathers had the trust in the people of India, so the power to vote was given. After that, from 1951 onwards, till the time 2019 national election, and maybe we are now on the doorstep of 2024 national Lok Sabha elections, the elections have always come on time, each time, every time, and credible elections which have been accepted by all stakeholders. But there has been one missing point, which I would call democracy deficit. That is, the lack of the fullest participation of people in terms of registration and turnout. Look at 2014 and 2019 election. We had a record 66 and 67% voting in the national elections. That was preceded by very bad numbers like 50, 55, 58, maximum 60% of voting. So even after this, that the whole system, the election managers, the country have become aspirational, looking for fullest participation of people. Why the 300 million people do not take part whose names are on the electoral roll? About 30 crores. The answer is, there are lots of reasons for that, but three primary shortfall areas are, one, which we are discussing today with our listeners, that is the migrant voters who leave their place where they are registered to another place in search of maybe employment, education, for reasons of marriage, family relocation. Many existential situations could be reasons for that. That disenfranchises them. They are not able to come back to the place of their registration, to the polling station to cast a vote. So this is little unfair and in a way inhuman to some extent, and definitely doesn't speak great about the largest functional democracy of the world, that is India. I'm not going to the other two reasons. There are urban apathy, there is a youth disconnect, which have to be repaired time by time. I think the Election Commission is very concerned and they are going to move separately on this. But today we are discussing the RVM, the multi-constituency remote electronic voting machine, as you talked about. Okay. So, after a lot of consultation internally with the technology people on the side of the legal aspects, and on administrative and operational aspect, it's not just like a magic, yesterday it was created. No, it has been the work of many, many years. And as the Chief Election Commissioner and the Commission pointed out on this Monday's meeting to political parties, after that they said it will be a work in progress. But the intention, the efforts, and the coming out with a prototype of the remote electronic voting machine to redress the predicament of the migrant citizens, migrant voters, definitely a commendable step.
Mr. Raut, when they were demonstrating a prototype of the RVM, and I think because it's based on the EVM, which is already in use, the deficiencies which a lot of people have pointed out, and of course any system which has been brought on initially will have certain drawbacks, but we have to see what is the cost-benefit analysis, what is the advantage. We're getting a huge voter base in, its parity, its equity, and of course actually, as you said very rightly, the trust put in by the founding fathers of the Constitution in the earthy wisdom of the common man and woman. Now, wanting to understand from you, that have there been improvements in the RVM over the EVM?
Well, RVM and EVM are different machines and at the same time same machine. I am hopefully not contradicting myself. It is a modified version of existing EVM. And I do not agree with the point of view that because of cost there has been any compromise. Because EVM is a tested and trusted machine, this RVM is only a modified version of the existing EVM, only with the option for more constituencies. And in the immediate prototype, 72 constituencies, for example. So there should not be any question on technology. But mind you, in the meeting which took place with political parties, the technology has not been discussed. It was the political parties, many of them were of the view that the necessity of getting the migrant voter through the RVM route, that should first be established, A. B, there were also questions about who a migrant voter is to define. So the technology will come later on, the technology verification will come later on, and I would feel that it's pretty a long haul. It's not only technology, it's operational, it's legal, it's administrative. How this whole thing is carried from A to Z, that itself is a long work. And so it will be happen step by step. Everything. EVM took its decades to be settled. VVPAT also took quite some time to be settled. Any new instrument, equipment to get settled in the election arena, in where people look at each other, the political combatants look at each other with some amount of suspicion. It is both a management of trust and management of distrust. I think ECI is doing that very well.
Right, sir. And I think your point is so valid to say that just because we know there will be challenges, but there is a tried and tested system. Let's make a beginning. Just because there are challenges doesn't mean we won't make a beginning. We'll only get better and better at it as and when they come. And I think that's the right approach, because in a country as varied and diverse as India, equity as a principle, making sure that people get an equal opportunity, even if it is in the largest festival of democracy which the Election Commission in India holds, is very, very critical.
Exactly. We cannot deprive on human considerations, on democratic considerations, on the considerations of rights. We cannot deprive some people of the right to vote only because they are being forced to leave their place of registration, with which they have a social and emotional connection, and they have a voting connection. If they are somewhere else, then we can't just tell them, no, you can't vote. Either you come to the polling station or don't vote. In fact, some of us have been presented with the question, India with its IT power, India with its technology power, can it not solve this problem of remote voting? We have been asked, why students ask, people in the hostel ask, those who are in jobs in residential colonies in other places, they ask this question. Can you not give us the right when I am here? Do I have to really spend money? Is it realistic that I can go back? I cannot go back to just to give a vote in my polling station. Why can't you facilitate it here? Hence, I'll be a little surprised if political parties who always sense the pulse of the people, they find it difficult or they have reservations in helping the migrant voters out in this critical moment.
We've always had this desire in India to make sure that the number of marginalized sections and people keeps decreasing. You know, more and more people come into the mainstream. And here, by virtue of the fact that they don't have the facility to do that where they are, the migrant workers, this category, we're actually, having a huge number of people whom we are marginalizing by the system. Bringing this in would actually mainstream many. And today everything is being given, with convenience. So why not a basic right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm sure that the election managers will make sure that secrecy, security of vote, transparency, these are the basic principles on which the whole election management edifice rests. And those will never be compromised. I think that everyone has to be very sure. Nothing is going to happen which will upset this delicate system of election management. Like, for example, there has to be necessary changes in the Representation of the People Act, the conduct of election rules, the registration of electors rules, the ordinary residence and the temporary absence, they have to be properly defined. And then there will be the listing of the remote voters, because they have to apply to first be defined and brought in the category of remote voters in the original places where they're registered.
Right.
And then the polling booths have to be set up which are very special. The environment has to be controlled.
And it's multi-constituency.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And the model code of conduct has to be enforced in these locations. So it's a detailed work. But Election Commission has bravely and very democratically come forward to say that they will be able to go the long distance. They will work out everything step by step. But at the moment, there is consensus building to take everyone together. Because you and I know that after the voter, the next most important stakeholders in Indian elections are the political parties.
Absolutely.
So political parties have to be carried along. Why we call elections credible? Because people accept it, political parties accept it. That's it. So when we are starting a new instrument, so everyone, most eminently, the political parties will have to be taken along. That's what is being done at this point of time.
Right. So do you think that when we talk of, and everybody is highlighting the logistical and administrative challenges, what are the support would the Election Commission need for all this? You spoke about the different stakeholders, government, policy, people, politicians. How do you think that this system can be made better, more foolproof and more secure? What support could be given?
See, I think in certain matters of logistics and operations, Election Commission is quite resourceful.
Right.
And under the Constitution, it is empowered to draw upon any additional resources it wants to take from the state or from the center to make sure that they deliver a free, fair, smooth and participative election. So that part I am not worried at all.
Okay.
I am just concerned that there should be a complete faith and trust, and the problem of the migrant voter, which is really Herculean and they have been deprived over years, that should be sorted out. But mind you, we cannot complete this discussion without referring to the point of other deficits in participation. Migrant voter is one part. But as election after election has proved more recently, the Gujarat elections, for example, and before that, all the time in elections in Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, the urban apathy is also a killer. It's not that migrant voters get an entitlement and the problem of participation is resolved completely. No, not at all. We have the urban people who have all the connect and who may be next door to the polling station. They don't come out to vote. There is this much, and apathy can be a slow killer of democracy.
Yes.
So also, youth, our youth, despite the fact that they're very forward-looking, they're contemporary, they're modernistic in their outlook, they have not been connected with this great act of voting. They have yet to develop the stakes in the voting, which is not a great symptom. So Election Commission, with other stakeholders, partners, is trying now to address those two apart from the migrant voters issue, the aspects of urban apathy and youth disconnect.
I think in a nutshell, sir, you've put it very well, because when people have the right and the facility and the convenience, apathy sets in. And we are saying that, irrespective of whatever facilities are given, apathy can set in anywhere, which is the support the Election Commission, democracy as an institution would like from each and every one of us, wherever we are, whichever category we belong to, that we need, this is our contribution to democracy. We have to do that.
Absolutely. It's a greater participation that makes it a stronger democracy.
Absolutely. Mr. Akshay Rao, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you, sir.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Election Commission's remote voting proposal for migrants.